Let's talk what, how, why method when you're analyzing language. How have you been taught to analyze language? I've been in a lot of schools, and every school seems to have its own acronym for how we should teach it. Have you been taught PEE, Point, Evidence, Explain? That one's not too bad. Have you been taught PETER, Point, Evidence, Technique, Effect, Reader? PEAL, Point, Evidence, Effect, Link to the question. PEASER. I could go on and on and on, and chances are you probably have an acronym. Now, of course, that's teachers' efforts to help you understand how to organize your thoughts. But more often than not, I find students become a slave to the structure rather than the content, which means you are doomed to staying at the bottom end of the mark scheme because you end up just copying what's on the page. It's heartbreaking every time I read it. The problem with them, you get the pattern. You get sentence starters, but you don't get the why. I have to have the why. As an examiner, I see a lot of repeating words, a lot of comments like, this gives a good effect on the reader because it creates a picture in their heads. You could slap that sentence into any analysis on the planet, which means it's not specific, which means you never get any marks. And oftentimes you lose the goodwill of the examiner, which is a problem. Try this. What? What is the writer saying at this point in the extract? What is the point of this? And by the way, this works for English literature very well as well. What is the writer saying? What's the point? Is it connected, or how is it connected to the question? Then how is the writer communicating? In other words, what specific words and techniques, including the order of words in the sentence, is the writer using? This is your evidence and your explanation of that evidence. And so that includes words and techniques, and that includes zooming in and explaining synonyms and connotations of these words. And the why is, well, why has the writer made this choice? We can always assume, and this is a top tip here, we can always assume that the writer is trying to get us to feel something, to change our minds about something, to change our perspective about something. But with creative writing especially, it's about emotion. They want us to feel it. Well, one of the other problems is how we deal with our emotions. What emotions do we feel? Well, most people have three. Are we happy? Are we sad? Or are we angry? The reality is there are so many more. Look in your phone for a second. Look at all the different emoticons you've got for different emotions. We've got very good at using different emotions or different emoticons to highlight our emotions. But do you even know what all of them mean? Have we lost the ability to use language to describe how we're feeling? Well, largely, yes, which explains a lot of our anxiety. It explains a lot of our inability to communicate. It explains why we fall out with our friends, because we can't say what we want to say correctly. So I actually teach tone and feeling words explicitly, and I have a Quizlet set, of course, dedicated to it. But instead of anger, well, is the character, or does the writer want us to feel annoyed about something, or fed up about something, or irritated, or do they want us to catch the resentment of the character? Should we be furious? Should we be embarrassed for the character? Should we feel the inspiration of the character or the extract based on the weather, for example, or the depressed, desperate state of the text, often again based on the weather, right? So there's loads of different words that if you can access them, learn them, and have them at your disposal when it comes to the exam, you can do so much better. This is Lit and Lang, by the way, all 4 papers. So what, how, why? Focus on the question and or what's happening in the part of the text you will explore, and put it in your own words. Don't repeat it. You don't get marks if you're just repeating it. You have to explain it in your own words. How? Include the evidence and explode it. Say everything you can about its effects. Oh, I just put the wrong its. It's ITS, no apostrophe. See, even we can get it wrong. Its effects and implications on your words. Synonyms, connotations, and the why. The how may largely answer this question if you do a good job with the how. If you're considering connotations, you're considering emotion, which connects us to the why. But if you can go further by explaining how you as the reader are meant to react emotionally at this point, not if you are reacting, by the way, but how the writer wants you to react. So you have to try to get in the shoes of the writer and think about how these different words have created an atmosphere, a tone. So for example, synonyms, remember, are words that are similar to the words used by the author, and connotations are the emotional and cultural assumptions of the word. So for example, the word graveyard. Well, the synonym and or definition is a place where people are buried, a burial ground. Connotations, on the other hand, connect us to death, horror, darkness, isolation, magic, doom, loads of different things that are quite creepy and scary and horrifying. Okay? So let's look at an example from the beginning of Great Expectations, which is one of your literature texts. Most people don't study it because I think it's like 800 pages. I love it. Hold your noise, came a terrible voice as the man started up from among the graves at the side of the church porch. Keep still, you little devil, or I'll cut your throat. Okay, so if you're supposed to be answering the question, how is this man presented? Now that's a literature question. But for language, you would have to answer how is language used to present this man, right? Same question. Well, let's look at the beginning of it. We start at the beginning, work our way through, right? There's the use of the exclamation mark. That highlights high emotion, intensity, authority, or maybe even desperation. So you can see I have multiple different possibilities here. And that's how you get higher up in the mark scheme, because you're thinking of many ideas, not just one. Then I said terrible voice. So I move along and I thought, I could say something about the word terrible. Terrible connotes something fear-inducing. You'll notice I didn't say the word terrible means terrible. You don't get any marks for that. You're just repeating it. So terrible connotes something fear-inducing, horrible, evil maybe, and angry. So again, you can see I have multiple ideas to back up what it might mean. You have to be able to access enough words to be able to do that. Then I carry on down the page and I wanted to say so I've skipped a lot of stuff because I was going quick, because you have to go quick in the exam. And then I have, little devil. That's metaphorical language. He's name-calling this little child. So the metaphor, little devil, highlights this man's perspective towards this crying child. He's dehumanizing him, scaring him, showing he doesn't care about him. That says a lot about this man. And then we end with, I'll cut your throat, and another exclamation mark. Cutthroat is violent language, connotes a violent, awful, brutal death, and illustrates a threat and intensifies the fear and horror. Okay, so I've had all of those thoughts as I'm going through. How do you put, and then the effect on the reader? Well, I've largely explained that because I've connected to emotion. But let's say you want to go further with your why, just to make sure that's covered. It's already embedded, like I said. You could add something along the lines of fear, terror, worry for the child's life, and horror at this man, because of course you're connecting to the man. We feel sympathy and tension, wondering if this child is about to join his family in the earth, and if this man is a murderer, right? So the man is presented as scary. For example, the author uses exclamation marks in hold your noise to illustrate high emotion, intensity, authority, desperation. Similarly, his terrible voice connotes something fear-inducing, horrible, evil perhaps, and angry. Further down, the metaphor little devil highlights his perspective towards this crying child. So you can see I have literally, what notes I took there, I've put into a paragraph. It doesn't have to use fancy sentence starters. In fact, I hate fancy sentence starters because it usually means the young person has spent most of his time memorizing a structure rather than the content that should be in it. And oftentimes with the sentence starters, we get low band answers. It's no wonder students are getting 2 or 3 marks out of 8 for questions like this, or out of 12, because you're focused on fancy sentence starters rather than saying everything you can about it. what is going on connected to the question, how is it presented by the writer, and there's loads of different hows if you track the page down, okay? So you identify something, you say everything you can about it. You identify something else, you say everything you can about it. You identify something else, you say everything you can about it. And then you make sure you connect it to the why, right? The writer is trying to make us scared of this man, to create a terrifying, mysterious, maybe magical type human being, because he's in a graveyard where magic and horror can happen. So, last thing here, I've got my tone words in the class. I highly recommend you study them. I've cut them down to 17 words. Connecting to the tone in your explanation will ratchet up your grades.